So I finally did it. Apple Silicon burst onto the laptop scene in 2020, annihilating the performance of its forerunning Intel brothers and sisters, and bringing with it never-before-seen performance for such a low-power SoC. Reviewers and consumers were spellbound that the revelation had come. These laptops were about to change the game. Possibly, said Mac Pro 5.1 users, and everyone who'd been using older, more repairable MacBooks until that point. As a seller and video creator focused on the older ones, I have a habit of changing my laptop a lot, but most commonly I use this 2012 15-inch MacBook Pro. This week though, I thought I'd bite the bullet and bought a 2020 M1 MacBook Air on Gumtree, a kind of UK Craigslist. For £400 or $500, I don't think this laptop has much competition, to be honest. Anyway, let's compare it to some older Intel MacBooks to see just how much of an upgrade a jump from Intel to Apple Silicon provides. I'm sure you've seen a lot of people talk about this over the last few years, but M1 MacBooks get going instantly when you open the lid. Using the fingerprint sensor to unlock means you can be looking at your desktop screen in under a second from when you open the thing. At this stage, the first thing I noticed was the screen. It's nice and bright, and the resolution is excellent. It's just very small, which is a pity because you're going to end up paying closer to $1,000 if you want anything bigger. This isn't helped by the presence of fairly significant bezels on all sides. 2021 was the year Apple switched to almost bezel-less designs on their laptop displays. Luckily, I'm able to do a fair bit of work at home, plugged into a bigger monitor, but that small display is something worth thinking about if you're looking to buy one. 15-inch laptops like this 2012 unibody are 10 a penny these days. They're available for under $200 in most countries, and with the right patch tools can run macOS up to Sonoma. The screens are not super high resolution, but if you want something big, this or a 2015 for between $200 and $300 are the budget options. Right, I'm not sure if you already knew this, but the M1 MacBook Air doesn't have a fan. In fact, it doesn't strictly have any moving parts on the inside, thanks to solid-state storage. This has been incredible for me. The fact that it's cool and dead silent no matter what I throw at it just blows my mind. The 2012 15-inch would start ramping up the fans once I opened too many Safari tabs, for example. I genuinely had to worry about keeping it on a flat surface at all times because it would overheat on my lap or on a blanket. Don't pretend you don't have to worry about that on your older Intel Mac. The M1 Air has 8 CPU cores, remember? There's no performance penalty here. Okay, well, more on performance later actually. Let's take it back a notch though. Here's a couple of things the 2012 and some newer Intel Macs just beat the M1 on fair and square. Firstly, I miss having an anti-glare display, like every day. Yeah, the small screen is usable, just sit closer. The reflections all over my screen do annoy me though. I'm not entirely sure why Apple offers anti-glare coatings on their desktop displays but doesn't apply the tech to their laptops. It does seem like a strange way around to have it. Also, ports. You've heard this one before, I reckon. The 2012 MacBook Pro had an essentially perfect array of ports. Yeah, HDMI would be nice these days, as well as a newer Thunderbolt port, but it's great to have USB 3 Type-A, a full-size Ethernet port, as well as an SD card slot, among lots of other things. It's nice to have a dedicated GPU on MacBooks like the 2012 and 2015. Do you know what though? They are beaten by the M1 chip's GPU. Even the 7-core graphics processor on this MacBook Air is capable of competing with dedicated graphics cards from newer laptops. This chart shows the M1 Mac Mini, which has just one more GPU core competing neck and neck with the formidable Pro 560X equipped 15-inch MacBook of 2018. In fact, one of the only Intel MacBooks with a better GPU than this M1 MacBook Air is the 2019 16-inch, the last of the Intels. The i9 models from this year had very strong Radeon Pro 5500 and 5600M GPUs. Until 2021, when the M1 Pro MacBooks released with the newer Apple Silicon GPUs, these 2019s were the one to buy if you wanted performance for graphics rendering. I used to game on one of them using Windows through Boot Camp, which brings me to another thing my old 2012 was pretty damn good at. Running Windows. All Intel Macs had Apple's Boot Camp utility baked into their operating system, meaning running Windows natively alongside macOS was a walk in the park for anyone with the free storage space. Gaming on computers these days is most commonly a Windows-only experience, so it's been nice to have the ability these last few years to run the games I wanted to play on my 2012 MacBook Pro, as well as my 5.1 Mac Pro. Let's be real though, Apple Silicon Macs are not capable of running Windows natively. They can run it in virtual machine software though, so you're not stuck on macOS forever. There's a performance penalty when running virtual machines, of course, but that's not worth worrying too much about considering the other benefits an M1 Mac will grant you. Let's look at some CPU benchmarks. In Geekbench 6, the single-core CPU test gave the M1 MacBook Air 2020 a score of 2,335. The 2012 15-inch scored only 684. That's a hugely significant difference. The M1 scored 8,316 on the multi-core test, with the 2012 only managing 2,322. Overall, the M1 Air then is, on paper, over 3 times faster than this Intel machine. Does it show in real-life performance though? Yeah, it does. I can open Final Cut Pro in a couple of seconds on my new M1 laptop. This takes forever on the 2012, and editing video even on iMovie was something that I was constantly waiting around for, with that beach ball loading sign taking up valuable minutes of my day. Oh, and do you know what else saves me a load of time? Recording directly onto the mics in this laptop instead of going through my audio interface on my desk setup every time I want to record. Let me know what you think, but I think the quality of the mic is genuinely passable. If you would be described as a power user of Apple hardware, I strongly suggest you give these Macs a try. I can't overstate how much of a performance increase I've noticed, even from when I used to use the 2019 16-inch Intel MacBook Pro. I have so much more power at my fingertips for video creation, and can't wait to come up with more videos for the channel, and be able to edit them in more exciting ways now that Final Cut runs properly. Here are a couple of things I don't like about the Mac though, just to keep the video fair. Not being able to upgrade your SSD sucks, there's no denying it. MacBooks until around 2018 were upgradable in this sense, and I was able to have a 2TB setup with 2 separate drives on my 2012 MacBook Pro. I'm also not a fan of being stuck with 8GB of RAM from the day I buy a computer. I guess the days of upgradable memory are long gone though. The last point is hard to describe, but I feel like the M1 MacBooks are just a little bit boring. I miss the days of being able to get a ridiculous 17-inch MacBook that weighed 3 kilos or 7 pounds, and the times when people were taking their Wi-Fi cards out and putting newer ones in. The MacBook scene these days is just a little boring, let's admit it. I can assure you guys I will keep talking about the older and more interesting Macs for years to come. Thanks for watching, subscribe for more, and I'll see you in next week's video. By the way, my Patreon is now up and running, so if you do want to support the channel directly, that's an option in the video's description down below.